RosterWatch Nation, what is up? And welcome back to the RosterWatch Top 10 Thoughts Show from the Week 3 edition of the NFL season. We're into Week 4 now, and this used to mark the time of year where it's like, all right, we're a quarter way through, but now obviously with 18 weeks and 17 games, that's changed up a little bit. So I think technically we're at the sixth of the way point through the season. In Week 3, we do got 10 thoughts. We got a couple of honorable mentions for you today on the top 10 thoughts. A reminder to click that like button, click subscribe, lock in on Roster Watch on YouTube, Roster Watch on podcast, and of course, rosterwatch.com with that QR code right there. I did the pointing right there. The week 4 waiver wire cheat sheet will be up on Tuesday afternoon, as well as the Week 4 waiver wire show with the Trashman and Alex Dunlap will be up on Tuesday afternoon as well. Again, no live stream on Monday or Tuesday or Friday, but the live stream is on Sunday. The shows will drop on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday afternoons, but they will not be live streams. The live stream will only be on Sunday morning. And this weekend for the Start Sit Show, it will be at about 8:45, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Again, 8:45, 9 a.m. Eastern time. That's going to be, we have the Dublin game with the Steelers and Vikings, which kicks off at 9:30 Eastern time. And I didn't realize that yesterday when I thought about this, but I'm gonna do the stream early. So if you guys start sits, jump over there. Otherwise, of course, go to rosterwatch.com and ask those questions on the Pro and Premium post. Top 10 thoughts from Week 3 going into week number 4. Number 1, Emeka Egbuka. How about that? How about we start with Emeka Egbuka? Because yesterday or Sunday on the Sitter Start show, people ragged on me in the chat on Sunday morning about pitch count this, pitch count that, limited snaps this, limited snaps that. And of course, Mike Evans gets banged up in the game, but Emeka Egbuka was eating before that. I think he only caught 2 footballs after Evans left. Well, I'm here to put this out right now. There was a report that came out, I think 13 hours before kickoff from Shefty that said, watch the pitch count. And then an hour before kickoff, Ian Rappaport and the Pewter Report said, there's no pitch count. To my knowledge, we didn't see a pitch count. Now, if there was a live in-game, part of the phrasing that was utilized as well was a live in-game live in-game adjustment. Sure. Well, here's the deal. Emeka Egbuka played 66% of the snaps, 66% of the routes, right? Which is 30% less than what he ran the last 2 weeks, 97, 98%. Is that a pitch count or is that just strategically being utilized? Because strategically, I said this on Sunday morning. I said, there's not going to be a pitch count. Yes, the snaps will be different, but the pitch count is not going to be a thing because he's going to be utilized to the point where if he enters the game, he's going to be one of the highly targeted players, which happened. His target share went up 8% from week 1, 9% from week 2. And he scored 14.5 fantasy points. He had 36% of the air yards, which was his best in the season, and 100% of his targets were catchable, which is the first time this season. He had a 35% targets per route run rate, which again was up from 16 and 17%. So he played and we played him, and he didn't play 98% of those to the routes, but when he was in, he was utilized. That's not a pitch count. Pitch counts aren't, well, we're only going to play him for 65%, and whatever happens. This is we got Emeka Egbuka, and what we got was a tweet from Cal Sope from PFN who says wide receivers to start their first season with 12.5 PPR points in week 1, 2, and 3 since 2010. So again, Emeka Egbuka had 23.6 in week 1, 12.9 in week 2, and 14.5 this week. Since 2010, 5 wide receivers have done this. 2015, Stephon Diggs. 2016, Sterling Shepard. 2019, Terry McLaurin. 2021, Jamar Chase. I don't know if Byron ever put this out there, but if Byron's listening, I will say, Byron did say, Emeka, when he went down to training camp, he said, Emeka Egbuka is given like Jamar Chase vibes. He's got these massive calves. He just gives Jamar Chase vibes. Now, he's not as dynamic from a field stretching standpoint as Jamar Chase, but definitely interesting that he's the first rookie wide receiver in week 1, 2, and 3 to average 12.5 plus fantasy points per game or in each of those games since Jamar Chase in 2021 and the 5th since 2010. Emeka Egbuka's a dude. Mike Evans got banged up in this game with a hamstring injury. It looks like we might get Chris Godwin back this week or next week. We'll see what happens. They play the Eagles this week, and if they're down Mike Evans, they definitely are going to need a little Chris Godwin pick-me-up. Number 2, Jake Ferguson is your tight end 1 in fantasy football so far through 3 weeks. Now, again, he is the beneficiary of a CeeDee Lamb injury in Chicago yesterday. The Dallas Cowboys dealt with a CeeDee Lamb going down with an ankle injury. Lamb completely put up a donut because of it. It happened a little bit early. It sounds like it's a high ankle sprain. We'll see what happens. Ferguson caught all 13 of his first 13 targets, and then the 14th target on the day was uncatchable. 82 yards, no scores because, Dallas had a problem getting in the red zone scoring. It was more of an interception party. They threw 3 on the day, 2 in the red zone. But Ferguson, tight end 1 overall in fantasy football right now. Juwan Johnson's tight end 2. Hunter Henry's tight end 3. And 8 of the top 12 tight ends right now in fantasy football were drafted outside the top 12 rounds. Ferguson, Juwan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Tucker Kraft, Dalton Kincaid, Zach Ertz, Harold Fannin, and Kyle Pitts is your top. Those are 8 of your top 12 guys. Of course, you have McBride, Bowers, Warren, and Kelsey, the dudes in there, but they're not even. McBride's the only one in the top 5 among that list. Then outside the top 12, it's, Strange, John Uchig. Like, it is a party out to the 12th round at tight end, and we kind of said to do that. That was our target. Now, again, our target was, I loved some Pitts. Alex loved some Hunter Henry, who had a diabolical day on Sunday, 29 fantasy points after having a 1.9 burger in week 2. But yeah, the tight ends are eating in the late round in 2025. And, we're just going to continue to lean into that. We are a nation that depended on late round tight ends, and it's working for us so far. Number 3. A couple of rookie breakouts. Last week, we dropped the video of every touch from Quinshon Judkins on the channel. You can scroll down, you click the video section, and you can find that Quinshon Judkins video. But today, I dropped one from Cam Skattebo, with all of his targets and carries from his Sunday night football party against the Kansas City Chiefs. He broke out in this game. Cam Skattebo we saw Tyrone Tracy deal with I think it was a separated shoulder or a collarbone, and Scat took over that backfield when Tracy went down. 59% of the snaps, 31% target share, 24 PPR points. Like, he's so far going into Monday Night Football, he's the running back 2 on the week, and Skattebo has completely just laid down the hammer, and he's arrived in the NFL. Now, Alex will try to talk me and say yo, this is, you call him the biggest kitty cat ever. I said, you talk to him in person. He's not the biggest dog in the room when there's media in the room, obviously, but when there's not media in the room, we've heard he's pretty maniacal. So there's the flub in the analysis there. Cam's just a reserved guy. I would say I identify in the same direction. I don't identify as shit, but I will say I identify in the same direction in that I'm generally pretty low key in front of open doors. Behind closed doors, it's a different animal. I'm a little maniacal when I'm around my friends and family. And I think that's kind of the Cam Skattebo situation you're dealing with. And the only thing you really get to see is when he's on the field and he's putting his helmet into your sternum. And Cam Skattebo is going to continue to do that. We'll see how long he can do that for and how many 20 touch games he can take on. But Cam Skattebo looks phenomenal. Quinshon Judkins with a little mini breakout here. 58% of the snaps in week 3. He's the first official, start and, big role. 16.5 PPR points for Quinshon Judkins. Only a 3% target share when you look at the Skattebo number at 31%. 3% for Judkins. We saw Jerome Ford 33% of the snaps and Dylan Sampson down to 7%. So again, remember, in week 1, Dylan Sampson was at 52%. Last week, he was down to 18 snaps. And then in week, let me pull up the actual number. I have percentages and numbers here, and I have them cross-positionally. So the Browns' backfield was officially, as far as the touch numbers go, here we go. Because Sampson went way down this week. So he went from 32 to 18 to 4. He had 4 total snaps Again, no targets, 1 carry. Ford went from 35 snaps to 19, 24 routes to 13, 6 carries to 0, and 4 targets in this game. He took over the full-blown pass-catching role at the running back position, and then we saw Judkins go from 18 to 33. So, again, we talked about it last week, the neutering of opportunities from Sampson and from Ford. We saw Ford drop 16% in snaps. We saw Sampson drop 18% in snaps, and we saw Quinshon jump from 25 to 58. And I think that number is probably going to continue to tick up a little bit more. We're probably going to get a Judkins settling in somewhere around that 65 to 70% area. He took on 95% of the carries in this game. Again, they were down 10-0 for the majority of it, 3-0 and then 10-0, and they made the comeback and they won that game. In games that the Browns are more in, which, again, they were in that one. It was against the Packers. Like, if we expect them to be in a couple of more games, there's going to be much more opportunities for Judkins to double down on this 16-point fantasy game and give us a 20 and a 25-point game as well. A much bigger breakup. But Judkins is officially here. I mean, those are the top 2 rushers in this class right now, Quinshon Judkins and Cam Scadaboo. Number 4. As far as fantasy football goes, the wide receiver position, we have some truly maniacal target shares going on right now in the NFL. And it was led by the one and only Garrett Wilson, because we knew that role in New York was going to be diabolical when it came to Justin Fields throwing the football to Garrett Wilson. Instead, it's JSN who is now in the lead as far as the target share goes. JSN at 40%. 40%. Garrett Wilson drops down to 38% with Puka Nacua. If you would have, here's where I want to go with this. JSN's a menace. Right now in fantasy football, through 3 weeks of scoring, JSN is wide receiver 4. Garrett Wilson's wide receiver 6. Puka Nacua is wide receiver 1. Who did I not name right there from that list? I named them all. JSN, Wilson, Puka, and then I also have Olave, Neighbors, and Adams on here. Olave is, what is he, wide receiver 24, and he's in the top 6 in target shares right now. So it's 40% for JSN, 38% for Wilson. Puka's at 38%. Olave's at 32%. Neighbors is 31%, and Adams is 31%. Adams is sitting right now at wide receiver 13. Neighbors at 8, Wilson at 6, and Jigba at 4, Puka at 1, and Olave's all the way down at 24. Again, he's got a 12, 11, and 15-point game, but the target share has been there. The scoring just hasn't been there from an overall perspective. I thought it was pretty maniacal to see that Adams and Puka combined for a 69% target share through 3 weeks. I was trying to find last year who the leading target share. I think it was Neighbors, if I remember right, for the leading target share. So leading targets was Jamar Chase at 175, but the leading target share was Neighbors at 32%, AJ Brown was 31%, and Puka was at 28%. So last year we saw Puka at 28%, Adams at 27%. Both those guys, again, not on the same team last year, have gotten the uptick. So Puka's went from 28% to the first 3 weeks up to 38%, so up 10%, and then Adams went from 27% up to 31%, which again is bizarre. Both paid off this last week as well. And then we've seen Neighbors, who was last year at 32%, continue with his 31% target share. Again, he's scoring, but I do think if they get Jackson Dart in there, it's going to be to a higher extent of output for that roster. And then you look at JSN and Garrett Wilson. You look at where they were just a year ago. Garrett Wilson 25% up to 38% now. And then you have JSN, who was nowhere near the 25% category, now all the way up to 40% in that Seattle Seahawks offense. And yesterday they absolutely demolished the New Orleans Saints. Olave had a 14 target game. JSN had just 6 targets, 5 for 96 and 1, and he's still sitting up here in that 40% conversation. This is your, these are your guys. These are your PPR monsters, Puka and Wilson and JSN, and Roma Dunze is not too far behind. Roma Dunze is on a crash course right now. He scored a touchdown in every single game so far this year. This number 4 overall top 10 thought has kind of just came together in a it's more of just like a wide receiver thought, I guess, than anything. Roma Duns is at 28%, by the way, on the season. That thing should be a touch higher, but he is the overall wide receiver number 2 because he had a 15-point game this week. Trey Tucker got himself all up to number 3 because of the small sample and the 40 burger that he had in week 3. Please remember to click that like button. Please click subscribe here on the YouTube and on podcast. Leave a thought on podcast if you would with a 5-star review. We're always down for some thoughts on how things are done. And if you like or hate the show, I've seen some comments on this say Cody sucks. I appreciate that, because you're interacting with the show. But I would like some more thoughts from y'all on the podcast side. We haven't got quite enough on the podcast side as we have on the YouTube side. Number 5, New Orleans. Speaking of New Orleans, and Miami are, especially in this year, they're just a special kind of bad. We just talked about New Orleans getting absolutely walked like a puppy by the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, 44-13. Last week, it was at home 26-21 to the Niners. And then in week 1, they lost 20-13. They were down 26-14 in week 2 to the Niners before a late touchdown. And then in week 1, again, it was a 20-13 loss, but they were down 20-10 until the last minute. They got a field goal. Games are finishing with the scores a little bit closer than they even should be in certain situations. This game against the Seahawks was never close. It was 44-6 until the fourth quarter when Jack Stoll scored a touchdown. We actually saw some Tyler Shook in this game. Miami and New Orleans suck. This is, we can call this the Drew Brees, Dante Culpepper, what was this, 2000 and what year was that free agency? 2003, 2004 free agency battle when it was Miami and New Orleans battling for Drew Brees and Dante Culpepper. Culpepper goes to the Dolphins, wrecks his knee, and Drew Brees, of course, goes on to win the Super Bowl. But New Orleans and Miami, a special kind of bad, man. These guys are, I hope we get to see a Quinn Ewers. I hope we get to see more Tyler Shook starting games. I hope we get to see Alvin Kamara and Tyreek Hill traded. Like the 101 and the 102 are locked in for the 2026 NFL draft. You look at the schedules right now for both of these teams. New Orleans gets Buffalo this week. New York Giants at home. Hopefully it's Dart. Dart wins that game. New England wins at the Bears, Tampa, Rams. The Panthers just put it on Atlanta. That's a losable game in Carolina. The bye week, then we get the Falcons. Then the battle for 101 happens in week 13, November 30th in Miami. New Orleans at Miami. The battle for the 101 is going to go down November 30th. Mark it on your calendars. Hopefully, it's Quinn Ewers versus Tyler Shook, and hopefully Tyreek Hill's like in Kansas City or Atlanta, and Alvin Kamara is maybe in Kansas City. I don't know, Kansas City or maybe Washington. I don't know. Number 6, aging running back depression. The injuries that we've seen in the last 10 days at the running back position is pretty painful, especially with the age of these dudes. Austin Eckler with the Achilles, Najee with an Achilles, James Conner with a busted up ankle this week. Like I get that it's positive for, the Trey Benson shares that we all have in Dynasty and the Omarion Hampton shares that we all have in seasonal and the Bill Krosky merit. I get all that, but all 3 of these injuries are career threatening. I would, I'm not going to say these guys aren't going to make it back, but they're career threatening. Achilles at this age, and then also with James Conner breaking an ankle. Like I don't know what the exact result was of the Conner injury, but it looked like he snapped his ankle. So I just pray that these guys get back to 100% in life at some point, and hopefully they get an opportunity to play at the NFL level. But I think they've taken their last snaps for their respective teams. This sport's tough. I always find myself like watching plays back like that. Like when I go back and I've like cut up the Cam Scatterboot tape this morning, and I'm watching some Quinshon Judkins and all these different things. But I always go back and like I end up watching like those injuries happen, but not for like the injury itself, like to watch the injury happen, because that's pretty sick and twisted. It's more of like I watch it for the mannerism before the play. Like, because you think about how like happy these dudes are or the mood that these dudes are in. and they're just, playing football, playing the game they love, and that they've put all this effort and all their life's energy into getting to. And then like for the Najee Harris one, right? He's just lined up 7 yards deep, ready to take another snap, and he just puts that foot back like he's done literally 4, 5, 6,000 times in game reps, probably in college and the pros, like 3, 4, 5,000 times. Overall, he's probably done that 10,000 times. And that one just happened to be the one that you put that foot back and it pops and he just goes down. And I always just find myself thinking about like that doing that brain exercise. Sometimes kind of puts you in a tailspin because your brain is like, man, he like 10 seconds before that, he gets a play call and he was probably going to take that ball for a carry, and they had to deal with what they dealt with, and he just goes down, and it's crazy. The sport, how fast things change, and you never know in the blink of an eye, everything can be done. So hope Najee, hope James Conner, hope Eckler make it back. But man, it's kind of depressing thinking about all the older running backs going down. Thought number 7 out of the weekend: Jordan Mason is a weekly top 8 running back option while Aaron Jones is on the IR. 77% of the snaps this week, 8 of 11 snaps on third downs that he got, 2 of 3 snaps inside the 5-yard line. That's all per True Media. And he scores 2 touchdowns. And the Vikings absolutely, again, puppy dogged the Cincinnati Bengals at home thanks to a defensive showing that was historic, I guess, from Isaiah Rodgers, we could say. Historic. An 87-yard pick six, a 66-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Jordan Mason added on a second and third quarter rushing touchdown in this game. He had 116 yards on the ground, average 7.3 yards per carry. 7.3 yards per carry. Now, Carson Wentz was sacked a few times. I think he gave up, I think it was 3 sacks in that game. They got Christian Darrisaw back, though. No Ryan Kelly. A couple of those sacks came up the gut. That did not look great. But they turned over the Bengals a couple of times. They ran the hell out of the football like we talked about them doing on the Friday show about dominating. Xavier Scott had 8 carries for 30 yards. Cam Akers off the couch, 5 carries for 19 yards, average 3.8. Jordan Mason's a top 8 running back every single week with no Aaron Jones. Number 8. Speaking of number 8, Caleb Williams gets his first career 30-point fantasy performance for most services. I think the way Fantasy Pros scores it is 4-point per touchdown pass, and he scored 29.1 for Fantasy Pros. But on all my leagues, he's like at 34.5, 37 points. So I obviously the scoring is a little different by variation, but I'm counting it as a 30-point game. It's his first career 30-point game. I called it on Friday. Maybe that's why I'm taking credit for it. I said he was going to have his first career 30-point fantasy game this weekend. He did it. And Luther Burden blew up. Like, Rome Odunze scored his touchdown, sure. DJ Moore got there because he scored a touchdown, yes. Cole Kmet got there. But Luther Burden, man, you put that ball up, Luther Burden's going to come down with it. Luther Burden's going to make a play if you give him the football. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown in this pretty controllable game against the Dallas Cowboys. I think they get Luther Burden the ball a little bit more. Number 9, a player that maybe we should temper expectations on. I only brought this up a week ago. Temper expectations on Ken Walker. Now, again, running back 10 in fantasy right now. Week 1, he had 2.4 points, was outsnapped by Charbonnet. Week 2, 17.8 fantasy points, was outsnapped by Charbonnet. Charbonnet goes down. He plays this week, 17 fantasy points. But here's the thing. People are going to continue. You can say I got take luck all you want about this whole situation. I love Ken Walker. But again, he's not we got to be careful here. You got to call a spade sometimes. 16 carries for 38 yards. 16 carries for 38 yards. Now, again, I understand the offensive line stinks. But we saw last week against Pittsburgh, who, again, yes, has a bottom 5 run defense this season so far. 13 for 105. But in 2 out of the 3 games, he's got 16 carries for 38 and 10 carries for 20. So again, 2 home games. San Fran plus New Orleans. 26 carries, 48 yards on the ground. 26 carries, 48 yards on the ground. $58 yards. Horrible. But he scores 2 touchdowns, so he gets you there. Caught one ball out of the backfield. Again, he got you there. I understand. But it's still abysmal. It's still an abysmal bet to say, yeah, the Seattle Seahawks are going to score 44 every week because they're going to play against New Orleans every week. If he scores, he gets you there. But as we know, touchdowns are the least predictable stat in the sport. They're on a short week this week. They got the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football in Arizona. Jacksonville, Houston before their bye. We'll see when Charbonnet comes back, if it's this week or next. I would bet it's probably going to be next with the short week this week. Then they have Tampa at home. But, I mean, the run defenses aren't going to get much easier than the Saints, and the situations aren't going to get much easier because you're not going to be blowing teams out as much. And George Holani still took 10 carries in this game. I told Alex on Friday I wasn't going to rank Ken Walker as a top 5 running back because George Holani is going to have a role. He had the role. We don't know if that game's tighter, what that role would have looked like in comparison to what we got from Charbonnet to begin the season the first 2 weeks, which is out snapping and out touching and out opportunitying Ken Walker. But this week, 50% of the snaps for Ken Walker, and it was a blowout. George Holani still had 37% of the snaps. I don't love George Holani, but George Holani did out-carry and out-rush Ashton Genty at Boise one year. Just saying. Again, I prefer Ken Walker over Charbonnet and George Holani, just to be fair here. But I'm worried about Ken Walker, period. I'll say it again. I said it last week. I said it the week before, and I'll say it again next week. Number 10, Michael Penix cannot throw the deep out left, I guess. I thought he could. I didn't think his arm was overly strong, but man, I thought he could throw the football. I thought he could get the football to all quadrants. And he had a couple of picks this weekend that were atrocious. Atrocious interceptions this weekend. He was 18 for 36, 50%. His QB rating was 40. He had 2 picks. He targeted Mooney 11 times, had 4 receptions. He targeted London 8 times for 5 receptions. Raymer Cloud 5 targets, 2 receptions. It was horrendous. He had a pick 6 thrown to, who was it? It was Chow Smith-Wade. I think Dante Jackson had the other one that almost ran back for 6. The Panthers, this was a puppy dog from the Panther side of things. I don't understand this thing. They went from Sunday Night Football. They looked like one of the most dominant teams in the sport against the Vikings. Then the Vikings come back, beat the snot out of the Bengals, and the Falcons get puppy dogged by the Panthers. Bizarre. And we learned Penix can't throw the deep out left, which is, of course, his open side because he's a lefty. I need to see something. I don't know what it is. They got Washington at home this week. Then they got a bye, and then it gets hard. Then it's Buffalo, Niners. I think the Dolphins, sure. But then it warms up a little bit. So I don't know. I need to see something. I need to go back and watch historically, I guess, these deep. I thought Penix could make this throw, but he can't. This is horrible. I'm worried about Michael Penix in Dynasty. Couple of honorable mentions. We'll get out of here. We're closing in on a 30-minute mark. Number 11, your honorable mention is the Washington backfield sucks, and it's going to suck. Jeremy McNichols is the third down back. 9 out of 11 third down snaps on this team. Chris Rodriguez is your guy between the 20s. And as we talked about on the Sunday morning show, again, they blew out the Raiders. They were up 34-10 in the third quarter before they scored a couple of late touchdowns to make it tighter. But they blew them out. Jeremy McNichols had a 60-yard run. He only had 4 carries. Mariota had 6 carries. Rodriguez had 11 for 39. Krosky Merritt had 8 carries. Krosky had 1 target. He was the only targeted running back on the team. Krosky Merritt got 3 of the 5 snaps inside the 5-yard line. This whole thing sucks. This whole backfield situation sucks on top of having, the running quarterback, which if it's Daniels, he runs, but Mariota had 6 carries for 40 yards, a 22-yard runner rush to boot. This whole backfield's going to suck. I mean, none of these guys are going to be a dependable top 24 bet in any given week because you're not sure what route that the team's going to go. It looks like it's going to be Rodriguez. That's going to get the bulk of the touches. Krosky Merritt probably gets more high value in the goal line area, but you got to get to the goal line area. And then you got McNichols, who, again, there was 11 third downs in this game that they won by a lot, and he had 9 of those snaps, and he was pretty efficient with it. So I'm worried about the Washington backfield, and I'm worried because maybe Dan Quinn getting knocked over on the sideline knocked some sense into him, because then we saw more cross-game area after that. But I hope he's okay. I thought he had a concussion or broke his nose or something. Number 12, honorable mention here. A.J. Brown. We knew the A.J. Brown game was coming. We knew it was coming. Again, we were worried. We thought it was going to come last week. He had the 8 targets. It came this week against the Rams. That was a maniacal football game. That thing was nuts. 26-7. And then the third and fourth quarter, the Eagles come back 27-26. And then Jordan Davis with the, blocked field goal. I told you I could run a 4.7 640 at 340 pounds. Remember me, 61-yard field goal block return for a touchdown. That was one of the worst backdoor covers of all time. Bad beats of all time. Rams were 3.5-point dogs in this game. Had to cover with if they just missed the field goal. And it's blocked and they run it back. One of the worst beats of all time. And we had it in the Circa Million. Horrible. We had a 4-1 week, and Jordan Davis took it from us. Last one, number 13. Make sure to lock in for the rest of the week. The RosterWatch Fantasy preview show will be on Friday. Again, it'll be in the afternoon. It'll be dropped. It won't be live. Tomorrow will not be live either for the Waiver Wire show, but Trashman and Alex will be here for you in the afternoon. It's a Travion Henderson week, baby. It's what it is. We've been hoping for it. Alex has been betting on it in the prop sheet, and this is the week. This is it. This coming week, week 4 of the 2025 season, we saw Scadaboo. We've seen Judkins. Harvey's getting more touches. We've had some bad games. Gentry's been one of them. Henderson's been one of them. Travis Hunter's been one of them amongst rookies. But in week 3, we got opportunities for Travion Henderson. Led New England in snaps, routes run, targets, and carries with a 48% snap share. Ramondre Stevenson fumbled twice. And he gets the Carolina Panthers on deck at home in week 4. Welcome to Travion Henderson week in fantasy football.
This is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is A.J. Brown, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to RosterWatch.